Hi guys, in this video we're gonna talk about the limbic system. We're gonna see the parts that make the limbic system as the gray matter nuclei collections. We're gonna see the tracts that connect them all together, and we're gonna see how we process the information, how we receive the stimulation, and how we respond to that. So what does the limbic system basically do? So the limbic system is a system that recognizes the senses such as fear and creates a physical response by release of hormones. It then registers that in memory for future responses if faced that stimulus again. In other words, you guys, if something happens to you in the surrounding, you need to receive it with all your senses. You need to get it all the way to your brain. And then you need to process that in your limbic system. You need to register the information, and then you will respond to that stimulus by physical response, and you will have changes in your autonomic nervous system that is also another response to the stimulus. So basically you are receiving stimulation, you process that in the limbic system because you need to take that to the place where it will tell you how to respond physically and how to respond autonomically by the release of hormones that will change your heart rate, for example, digestion, where you will stop the digestion because here you are in fight or flight mode. All right, so you need the limbic system in that. And also you need to register what you've learned for the next time, that when you face the same stimulus again, you will know what to do. Okay, so what is the limbic system composed of? Limbic system is basically a group of nuclei. These nuclei would be the hippocampal formation, the amygdala, the septal nucleus, the habenular nucleus, which is part of the pineal gland. All right, so all these ones are going to have a specific function, and we will know that. But because we need to use them to register the memory, we need to have connections. So these are the things that will help you to connect the nuclei of the limbic system to register the memory, the information. And also these will help you to project those information outside of the gray matter collections, like for the limbic lobe, for the hypothalamus and thalamus. So in this video, we have participants. These participants in that system, they are going to have specific functions, and they will have tracts that connect them together, and they will connect you also to outside surrounding areas that have important function in processing of that information. What are the white matter tracts in today? You have something called fornix, you have the mammillothalamic tract, you have stria terminalis, you have stria medullaris thalami. They will connect important parts of the limbic system together. What are the other structures that will contribute to the processing of the information? It's going to be something called limbic loop. It's going to be the hypothalamus. It's going to be the thalamus. These are not parts of your limbic system, but they will participate and some of the nuclei of them will participate in the processing of information, because remember guys, eventually you need to take the information, for example, for the hypothalamus to release hormones, all right? And also you need to take it to the thalamus because you need to have connections that registers from the anterior thalamic nucleus, for example, to the cortex. Okay, so these are all the things we're going to talk about them now, and let's proceed and see what are these parts. So understanding the parts of the system, the tracts connecting them, we will first of all take part by part. We understand them, we know what does that mean, where is it located, what is the function, and then we understand the tracts and what do they actually connect. And then we will combine them together and we'll try to understand one of the most famous circuitry and the people who explained the processing of memory and learning, like the Papez circuitry. And we will have the expanded Papez circuitry to understand how those guys all work together to register information and to tell you how to react. The first thing I want you guys to know is basically your limbic loop. When we refer to the term limbic loop, it's basically your cingulate gyrus and the parahippocampal gyrus. One of the most important parts of the limbic lobe is the entorhinal cortex, and the entorhinal cortex is part actually of the parahippocampal gyrus. It's the anteriormost part of it here, and we're gonna see it in a better images. Okay, so this is the limbic lobe. Okay, this is gonna be one of the participants in today's pathway. Okay, you have the cingulate gyrus, and then here you have the parahippocampal gyrus. Okay, now this is another picture that shows you guys the cingulate gyrus. This is the cingulate gyrus all the way, and this is the parahippocampal gyrus, and this is the area that we call the entorhinal cortex. All right, this is the frontal part, and this is the posteriorly, here is anteriorly. So if you look at the parahippocampal gyrus, and this is the incus, all right, the part that is most anterior is the entorhinal cortex, and this is the most important part we have today, because this is the part that's gonna receive all information from all the surrounding cortices, and we're gonna start our processing of information from here. Okay, so this is the first participant. This is the limbic lobe. Okay, next to that we have the hippocampal formation. What do we mean by hippocampal formation? Hippocampus, you guys, means it's a word in Latin that means the horse, because it looks like the seahorse. Hippocampus looks like the seahorse. This is what we mean by hippocampus. There is another name for the hippocampus. They sometimes call it cornu-ammonis. Cornu-ammonis means the ammon horn, okay, because it has this kind of looking, and it exactly looks like the how the hippocampus is turning around like the horn of Ammon. Ammon is that Egyptian god, all right. So it has, and it's the Ammon horn looks like the ram. Okay, so this is how it rotates and it turns around like that. So that's why they call it cornu-ammonis or hippocampus. Now, why am I saying hippocampal formation? Because hippocampal formation means there are three parts that forms the hippocampal formation. One of them is the hippocampus. It's exactly this. And one of them is the dentate gyrus. It's basically, you guys, if you look at inside of this hippocampus, you will see here something that it looks like tooth-like projections. It's as if the hippocampus is kind of hugging that area. This is the dentate gyrus, okay? So the dentate gyrus is another part of the hippocampal formation. And you have the subiculum. The subiculum is where you will get everything coming out of your hippocampal formation. If we look at this diagram, you will see that this is the dentate gyrus. It looks like a C-shaped part, and that there is an S-shaped coming out of it. This is the cornu-ammonis, and the subiculum is actually when you want to come out of that to start to process the information to the parahippocampal gyrus. So you have the cornu-ammonis, you have the hippocampus itself. This is the hippocampus. This is the dentate gyrus. And the subiculum is where you want to take your information out of the hippocampal formation, because subiculum in Latin means a transition. So this is the transition that will take you out of this job, okay, to the parahippocampal gyrus, connecting it to the parahippocampal gyrus. One thing that is important, you guys, I want you to remember at this point is the alveus and the fimbria. Why? Because when we talk about the circuitry and how we process the information of hippocampus, I'm gonna tell you that the information will be taken from the hippocampus here by something called fornix. So remember, guys, that the alveus and the fimbria are the people that will take the information from the hippocampal formation out, and from there we will start to form the fornix. From there we will start to form, you guys, the fornix that's gonna loop around the thalamus. Okay, so here we have the hippocampus, and then the alveus is going to be the axons, because you guys here, these are gray matter nuclei. Everyone has a function, and then the axons of these cell bodies are gonna form the alveus that will take you out, of this region, and from here the fimbria, it means in Latin the border. This is the border that collects all these axons together, and it combines them together out to form the fornix. Okay, so remember that the alveolus and the fimbria, they will start here, okay, at where we gonna have the axons coming out of the hippocampus itself. Okay, so remember where we stopped here, because that will be the start of the fornix itself. Okay, so these are the three parts of the hippocampal formation. So it's better you say hippocampal formation. Sometimes they say hippocampus for everything, but you should be specific in that hippocampus proper itself, okay, is this one. The subiculum is the transition out of the hippocampus, and then the dentate gyrus is basically this one. Okay, now in hippocampal formation, you guys, maybe you are in your practical exam and you want to know how to identify it. Hippocampus is in your temporal loop, you guys. So this is the hippocampus. When you try to dissect and get deeper, you will find this famous looking of the hippocampus. And the amygdala, guys, is this gray matter collection of nuclei that is responsible for fear and rage and any negative emotion you would think about. And it's located in front and medial to the hippocampus. Okay, so the amygdala is in front and medial to the hippocampus itself. And the hippocampus starts with something called pis hippocampus. Okay, so this is the start and this is the hippocampus, and from there you will start to form the fornix and come out of that. And this is another picture to show you guys the hippocampus, and then the dentate gyrus is as if it is being hugged by the turning of the hippocampus itself. Okay, guys, so this is the hippocampus, and inside of that you have the dentate gyrus, and that is in your temporal loop. Okay, guys, here this is in your temporal loop, and this is how it looks like in a practical kind of specimen. Okay, so what happens in the hippocampus and what is the major connection of that? Remember, you guys, when I showed you, I told you that we have the limbic loop that have the parahippocampal gyrus. Part of it was the entorhinal cortex that's going to receive information from a lot of brain cortical areas. And now you need to register the information. Okay, so what happens in the hippocampal formation is basically it works as if it's a recording device. You need to register the information, you need to process it, and then you need to take it out, okay, to give a feedback from these cortices, and you're gonna take it out for the hypothalamus because you want to have a response. Okay, so you will have your outputs going to many places, and we're going to talk about them. But let's understand what happens inside the hippocampal formation. You will receive information from the entorhinal cortex, and that needs to go through the dentate gyrus. Okay, remember, guys, we have dentate gyrus, we have the cornu-ammonis, and then we have the subiculum. Okay, guys, these are the three parts of the hippocampal formation. Dentate gyrus is your receiving area of the hippocampal formation. Don't ever forget that. This is the guy who's responsible to receive everything in the hippocampal formation. So when you receive, you're gonna take it to the dentate gyrus. Some of the theories will tell you that entorhinal cortex can also send to CA3 directly. Okay, how do we get information inside? It's by perforant pathway. How am I gonna remember that? Because you guys, if you want to get something in a deeper area, you want it to perforate, right? So if you want to have something coming from outside into your place, you need to get it perforated inside. So the perforant pathway, it's gonna help you to receive the information from the entorhinal cortex to the dentate gyrus. Now, how am I gonna take that dentate gyrus into the hippocampal proper? The hippocampus proper, CA3, it's by the Mosaic fibers. Okay, so here, so once you have the information to the dentate gyrus, the Mosaic fibers is gonna take you to the cornu-ammonis. Okay, so gonna be your bus. Okay, let's say that this is S letter. I didn't prepare a mnemonic for the Mosaic fibers. So just remember that it's just like a bus that will take you from the dentate gyrus to the cornu-ammonis. All right, so the perforant, because you are outside and you want your stuff to perforate into your hippocampal formation. So the perforant pathway will take the information from the entorhinal to the first guy in the hippocampal formation, which is the dentate gyrus. From the dentate gyrus, you need to go to the next guy, which is the cornu-ammonis. Cornu-ammonis has 4 zones or 4 areas. What concerns me today is only 2, CA3 and CA1. So by that, you will reach there by the Mosaic fibers, S, okay, to CA3. Now, from CA3 to CA1, you need a shortcut because this is CA, it's an area, number 3, and you want a shortcut that helps you to go and speed up to CA1 without going anywhere else like CA2. So this is going to be by the Schaffer collaterals. Schaffer, it's another name we call the Chevrolet cars, okay, in Middle East. Okay, so remember that the Schaffer is what the car that will speed you up from CA3 to CA1. So remember that pathway. And from CA1, it's your transition to the cortex. Remember, subiculum means transition. This is the last part you have from the hippocampal formation, and that will take you out of the hippocampal formation to the cortical participants. Sorry. All right. From the entorhinal cortex, guys, here you have registered the memory. Without those guys, you won't be able to record a memory and record the information that you are receiving. All right. And from the entorhinal cortex, you will send your feedbacks to the parahippocampal gyrus and to the cortex. By who? By the fornix. Okay, so we're going to talk about the fornix now, but remember that we had the alveus coming out from here. Remember the alveus that was taking me out from here to reach the fornix? And don't forget that the entorhinal cortex is part of the parahippocampal gyrus, guys. Okay, so these two, entorhinal is part of it. Okay, these two, you can consider them as one. So remember, now we talked about some guys and who is connecting them, okay? Perforant pathway from the entorhinal to dentate. From dentate to CA3, Mosaic fibers. CA3 to CA1, Schaffer collateral. And then the subiculum part of you, hippocampus, the transition that will take you to the entorhinal cortex, which is part of the parahippocampal gyrus. That's why I don't have anything here, because they are part of each other. This is part of this, and I showed you in the previous picture that. And then from this area, you will take the information. Those axons coming out of those guys will take you by the fornix to the cortex. All right. Now let's make things a bit complicated, because you guys here, limbic system is quite complicated and it has a lot of information. So we are trying to build up information step by step. Once I know that you grasped a concept, I will add up to that more information up until you take the whole story. So remember that the entorhinal cortex, yes, that was giving me everything. And I told you that some of the literature or some of the theories will tell you that not only dentate gyrus is a receiving chamber, it could also be CA3, but eventually you need to go to CA1. All right, so if you want to take it to the dentate gyrus, you will take it to the CA3, or from CA3 itself, you will go to CA1. I forgot to make an arrow here. Okay, so dentate gyrus can also send to CA3. Don't bother about the internal circuitry. We already said that in the previous slide, and you can go with that. Now what I want to add is that the olfactory bulb can send you information about smell that you want to register for later use. Yeah, because sometimes you smell something and you want to register that was a nice thing, and I want to react to it nicely, and I want to be happy because I smelled something good. You can also smell a food and you want to react to that. So you need to get the information registered here about how yummy this food is, and eventually we will talk about more circuitry that will, after registering, will take you out to the brain centers that are responsible for the autonomic reaction to what you've smelled. And then you could see something that you like and you want to register it, okay, and then you want to give feedback to the cortex responsible for that, which is the orbital cortex. And then when you want to see it next time, you will be happy and you want to show that you're happy that you've seen this thing. And then also you could receive from the temporal, because you've heard something, you want to register it, here, and then when you hear it next time, if someone asks you a question about something that you heard from today's video, you want to register it in your hippocampal formation, and when you hear it next time and they would tell you which of the following is this and that, you will tell, yes, this is the correct answer, I know it, because I've registered that in that video, and now I can remember that when the information comes again, I will be able to react to it, and I will be able to choose the correct answer. Cingulate gyrus is going to be when you have information about the behavior, pleasure, sex. Okay, so any of these information, you need to have it registered, recorded, and then you will know how to react next time. And the neocortex is also for the cortical areas that is responsible for specific function, whatever the stimulus is. All right, so all those guys are gonna give you information here because you need to register, you need to learn something, and you need to have a memory for that, and then you need to give feedback, and the next time you face the same stimulus, you will know what to do. And that is what you've learned in your childhood and in your early stages of life. Everyone has a different culture. Everyone is responding to stimulus in a different way. Someone can see something and they react to it in a bad way because they don't like it, because they have learned that when in early life from their parents, from their culture. Another guy will receive it in totally different way. So this is how this is very interesting information to know, because all the time you can control the thoughts you are having, because we're going to talk about the processing of information as we proceed, and I'm going to show you how the prefrontal cortex is actually participating in giving you thoughts about everything you're receiving, and that thought can alter the whole thing, and it can, yes, go through everything that you know from early life, but you can still give a different feedback because you can control the idea that you receive from your brain centers. All right, so yes, you register information, but you have the power to change the thought that you had at some point when you learn that this reaction is not good and not appropriate, and I should accept all kinds of stimulation, and I should react positively. So you always have a room for you to modify how to react to the different stimulation, even though you have registered something different in early life or in early experiences. All right. Now, guys, since we talked about the hippocampal formation,